Hi, this is Mike, and we're looking at the BLX chart for Bitcoin. So I just posted this chart not long ago, and I want to talk about it. So I have a feeling that this count could actually be the count that I've been looking for. And one of the things that enabled me to have this particular count is this lovely discovery here with this price action, right? The expanded zigzag wave B to me was the best thing that's happened to me in this analysis of this whole chart, right? Because it really helped me understand the whole pattern. Okay. So I took some time after this discovery to just let it sink in a little, let my mind process in the background as it always does. And then naturally, I came back to this conclusion. Okay. So this is my original count for Bitcoin, except I used to think that this was potentially a, sorry, I'll fix that one sec. I used to think that potentially that was A and that was B, and then C is happening. Now, even though I don't think it's wrong that C is happening, it's in the wrong context. So the way that I think that's actually happening is that we have a complete five-way moves up in this count. Okay, we have a channel break, and we also have this trend line from the fours, which is currently being interacted with now. So I want to explain to you my latest count for since the highs, the all-time highs, and how this may feed into the next crisis that we're going to see. And probably eventually you might notice that Bitcoin doesn't perform well in a banking crisis at all. I think that it's just corrective price action, and just like the news likes to paint a picture of why things are caused in the markets, what's causing things. They like to draw parallels between what's happening in the news and price action. I just think that's a load of BS, and that's the first thing that you should learn when you're a trader is that the news, it doesn't mean shit. Okay, so for me, the news is rubbish, and I like to look at what people are doing. Placing $2 million bets that it's going to $1 million by June. I don't know what's more of a shoe shine boy than that. Like that's seriously telling me that this is a top, right? The most ridiculous calls you get at the tops usually mean something, right? And when you see this kind of price action unfolding, you start to question things and you start to analyze more because there's something missing here. There's something going on. So I reckon that CTO did me a favor by making a $2 million bet that it's going to go to 1 million because I think he's probably going to be wrong, even though he's trying to, I don't know, bring awareness to himself. I think that it's pretty stupid, to be honest. But that's fine because there's so many opportunities coming for a lot of people that get in at the lows anyway. So let's take a look at this for a second. So I've drawn that trend line and you can see what that trend line's doing here, right? And what I've done is I've actually created what I believe is the count down since the all-time highs. And it can be a couple of things, right? And I'm going to tell you what I think are the possibilities here. So if you just look at the previous correction, right, you saw the A, B, C, D, E, right? Wave C was the longest, right? After the first move down for wave C, wave one, you saw a fairly decent bounce, right? So similarly to what we're seeing now, a fairly decent bounce, you could probably argue that this is also a weak five wave move because it looks like wave one is a zigzag and wave five is a zigzag. And you can almost say that wave three is a zigzag because it's got this giant knot in the middle, right? So anything that's pointing down in Bitcoin seems to be weak. Even the strongest moves seem to have this zigzaggy, impulsive moves going on, right? And even though I don't really like saying that because waves, you know, 4 isn't touching price action of wave 1 and 2, it's just compelling because it's actually already happened and you can actually observe it. And it seems to be telling me this. And then the DE pattern was small. So could this be happening now at a larger degree, right? Even though the AB at the high is small, wave C could be unfolding and turning into a really big wave. And I think that if this is correct, right, wave C, even if it's just wave 1 of wave C, it looks to be a weak 5-wave move. Okay. Now we have a zigzag at the highs, A, B, C, D, E. Okay. I prefer this count much more than assuming that this was just a full correction. And then you have another zigzag, wave 3, small zigzag, right? It's bigger than wave 1. So to me, it makes sense. And then we have a small wave 4, right? A, B, C, and there's actually a small zigzag in there for D and an E. So alternation between wave 4 and wave 2. And then the last move down could easily be classified to me as a zigzag, right? The whole thing down from end of wave 4 down to the lows, and it had trouble breaking that trend line. Remember that trend line I drew on the BLX chart, lining up the 2 wave 4s? Great. So I was saying that this could be a D wave, but let's not forget that zigzags are zigzags. Whether it's a D or an A, it would contain the same patterns. So how would we know whether or not this is still going to be a wave C down versus a CDE pattern unfolding, right? So I think the best way to know what's going to happen in that case is to pay attention to all the markets and also look out for a wave B zigzag down, right? So I think this thing's basically almost near a top. I don't think it's going to go higher, to be honest. You can quote me on that later. I don't care. I think it's pretty obvious. And I think that potentially what we might see is in reverse back down a wave B, right? Now that's if this is going to be a continuation of wave C, right? If wave C is already done, then this will be the wave D, right? This could easily be a wave D. And then we would see a 1-2 pattern evolve, right? Which would then still look like it's going to be a B. And, depending on what happens in the next move, it will tell us whether or not this is a C wave or if it's going to be an E wave, right? And the E wave could easily take this thing very low, right? At this point in time, I'm not going to talk about targets, right? Because a lot of people are going to start with their belly aching, and I really just don't think it's necessary for me to even give you a price prediction at this point. But let's just see what happens after this move here, right? Because if this move happens to fall in a zigzag and then bounce, it might be because the Dow Jones is still in the process of topping. I think that once the Dow Jones does actually top, right, like I've been saying in my previous ideas on the Dow Jones and in the Arius Wave show, episode 2, if you haven't seen it, is on YouTube now, on my YouTube channel, right? It's going to be a big crash, right? It's going to be GFC 2.0, and it's going to be a mix, like basically correcting everything up since the GFC, because it's a larger pattern that has not finished, and the last move is an E wave in the Dow Jones. So, this could definitely be an E wave, or it could definitely be a continuation of a C wave, right? Definitely, right? It doesn't really matter because either way, it's going to go down. Okay, now in order to trade it, we need to know. So that's why we're gonna be looking for evidence of how long it takes to move back down. If Dow Jones is still looking like it's rising during the process of this zigzag down, I would say that more than likely it's correcting in a wave two of wave C, right? And for it to interact with this trend line a little bit longer, I wouldn't be surprised, right? Another thing, obviously, that's going to happen if it is a wave two, and this happens to be a wave A, is that we might get a little bit more of a pullback, right? So if wave one happened, you know, like that, we may get price action that potentially bounces back a little bit, right? But not above the all-time high. I don't think that's going to happen, right? And if it does happen to happen for some strange reason, um, well, the crash is just going to be even worse when it happens. That's what I think. But I think it'll struggle around this trend line. I reckon it will have a lot of trouble with this trend line because it's a very long-term trend line. And to me, it's just all about what comes next. So, yeah, I know that A and B look small, but they did in the previous correction too. Wave C was pretty large. But now, because this is more than likely going to be correcting an even larger pattern, which is the whole move up since the beginning of Bitcoin up until this point, yeah, look, we've already got AB at the highs. So now we just need to see what the hell's going to happen from here. But look, it really doesn't look too good if you look at it from this perspective, right? It actually looks mega, mega bearish, right? Because this is even worse than what I was previously suggesting when I was still bearish thinking .com bust style, right? Because you got to imagine this, right? If the Dow Jones falls something of a larger magnitude, like economic collapse type magnitude, right? I don't think that this move down is going to produce a little 2020 type crash, which is a little blip in the system. I think it's going to go definitely a lot lower, right? And I'm not going to give you my price prediction yet. I'm just drawing a line on the chart. It doesn't mean anything, right? So from wherever this thing goes down from, it's going to be meaningful and it's going to be something that really shakes up this whole industry and the world because it's going to be a global thing. And then the opportunities are going to come like crazy. A lot of the shit coins are going to be completely obliterated. And I can already start to see what is going to happen with some of these coins. It's going to be bloody amazing and surreal. And if you're not going to buy at these levels, then you're never going to buy it. And if you're looking for that opportunity to buy it at the best possible price, if you got in late, well, I think you might be in luck. So stay tuned, and I'll be posting more updates about this in the not so distant future.